I would like to tell you the importance of problem solving. Why we learn something. I think we are not learning something only because we want to show off that, oh yeah, I graduated from this university and that university. Or when I was working in Indonesia in 2018, I met this Gojek company. Gojek is like an Uber in Indonesia. Indonesia is the largest market in ASEAN. They account for almost like a 40%. And then what I realized when I'm working in Indonesia for about 1 year, and then this Gojek is like a Grab in Singapore, in Malaysia, and then also in the United States is Uber. So Gojek is kind of trying to address the problem with public transportation. This company started from like a startup, and then now it's a decacorn, not unicorn, it's more than that. But when I see this company, it's not only just about successful startup or successful decacorn. It's more about the people really needed the public transportation infrastructure, but the government cannot provide the infrastructure right away. This company, small startup, that started addressing this social issue, how they are going to provide the public transportation for the general public. And then they did a great job, and they have been very successful so far. So what I see, what we learn something, when we learn something, we shouldn't forget that we all learn all these knowledges and we acquire all these degrees. It's not to show off, not to just decorate ourselves. It's more about it comes down to how you're going to resolve the problems. If you cannot resolve the problems, why do we learn anything? Just hope that we can keep in mind that it was about whether he can perform well, whether he can resolve the problems or not. So about number 4, experience. I think experience is very important. When you learn something, of course, if you become a researcher and then a doctor or PhD, I'm not saying it's not important. No? So if you are aiming for it, actually, if you want to become like a statistician or researcher or academician, I think it's good that just go for it. But if some of you like want to be really practical knowledge and doing something practical work, then if you cannot just work at the desktop and you have to be on the field, then I would suggest that you experience as many as possible. I just to focus on the experiences more, even though I had an opportunity to go to Europe to study more, like one more master degree or PhD, but I decided not to. Not because it's not worth it, it's because for me, I just want to learn more in the field, on the field. When the Belgian princess Astrid came to Korea 3 years ago, 2017, and then I was the one who welcomed her, and then I led one seminar with her. Experience as much as you can. Then in the meantime, you will learn a lot of things that you didn't expect. For me, I've been to almost like 80 countries, and there's a business trip and used to work. I just try to experience as much as I can so that I can broaden my horizon. Connecting dots. You know that Steve Jobs famously said that already. Somehow all the dots will be connected. I really strongly believe that. I would like to share this experience. The importance of connecting dots is, this is a long story, but let me just make it very brief. That I've been working with the Thai government and Thai startup ecosystem for some time. And then back in 2017, when I was working for Innovation Center for Korean government, my work was to go through all the business models of the 5,000 startup companies nationwide in Korea. And I studied all of the business models and tried to find really good startup companies who can go abroad or who can get the investment from abroad. And then somehow, instead of going to the United States or Japan or Europe directly, I went to Thailand with some Korean startup companies. I thought that they can get some investment. So I brought Korean startup companies to Thailand in 2017. When I went to Thailand, people think that why did you go to Thailand? Why not go to United States or Japan or China to get the investment for Korean startup companies? The reason is because I knew that through my Thai friends, business people, that Japan has been investing a lot of money in Thailand. There's Mitsubishi, MUFG already, and they also have set up the local bank, financed by actually MUFG. The bank name is Pungshi Bank. They also have their own innovation center. So I went to that innovation of Innovate with the Korean startup companies, and I introduced them. They're one of my friends who is working as a chairman of the blockchain and fintech payment system startup. His name is Jun Hasegawa. Here, this man. He and I met in 2017 around May or June, and then we were the judges together in Thailand. And I got to know him. I asked him, uh, Hasegawa, I brought some Korean company, startup. We really want to raise investment for them. Who would you recommend? And then Jun Hasegawa actually recommended this Kungsi Bank, Finovate. So I went to Kungsi Bank with Finovate with the Korean startup companies, and I did a pitching myself, and I introduced this particular startup company, Korean startup company. This Kungsi Bank heard my pitching and then said, "Oh, David, you can go to Japan because we have partners in Japan, like Mitsubishi and also the SBI Group." And then SBI Group used to be the SoftBank business investment before, but now it's a different entity, but they invest a lot of money in startup companies. So that's how I ended up going to Japan with this Korean startup company. I was successfully able to raise like a 21 billion US dollars from Japan and Hong Kong. Just I got to know this man in 2017, but I didn't know that how we are going to work together. But then, thanks to him, I could introduce this Korean startup company to Japan, and then we could get the investment from Japan, like a 15 million, and Hong Kong is a 6 million. So if you go to my LinkedIn, I'm going to show you later. There is a Wilson CEO. He's the Hong Kong investment company CEO, and he actually invested like a 5 million US dollars. I didn't know this guy, but I got to know all of them through this investment raising. When you meet people, you don't know how you're going to meet them again later. I'm not talking about just treating nicely because it will benefit you later. I'm not saying that. You get to know people, then don't expect that too much because don't try to think that you know everything. Oh, this guy has nothing to do with me, then I don't have to maintain the relationship with him or her. Don't think that way. Just keep in touch and stay connected. And somehow, mysteriously, all the dots are connected. So that's my point about this connecting dots. And workout is very important for me. It's not because I like fighting or you can say my favorite is actually kickboxing and then Muay Thai. But the reason why I have been practicing this is because if if I don't have a physical strength and stamina, I can continue to work, right? So there are so many things I want to achieve. But if I'm physically not capable, then I cannot do it. Now I work like from Monday to Sunday, sometimes work like a 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. I could all these because I have a good physical strength. But if I don't do workout, I don't think I can work too much. Then I cannot achieve much either. So for me, martial arts is not about fighting or self-defense only. It's more about self-discipline and then physical stamina so that I can continue to work and contribute as much as I can. And courage it means that you shouldn't be afraid to be successful. I'm not saying I'm successful. I have a long way to go. I met so many celebrities and I met so many high people. Like this gentleman is the president of Costa Rica, and this is the chairman of the Germany Bundestag, something like he's like a chairman of the National Assembly in Korea. Met all these people whenever I have an opportunity. I never back down. I just willing to meet them and then meet them and then welcome them to Korea. And that's how I got to know many celebrities and many high profile people. And they are all connected somehow. And then they also can be very great help to you when you work. And then passion. Passion is about, I think it's also something to do with how much we can eat and how much we can work out. For me, it's a passion is everything because if you're not passionate about what you're doing, it's like if you don't believe what you sell, then you can never convince the customers to buy what you are selling, right? In a way, whether you're working in the public sector or private sector, we all sell ourselves every day in a way because our strengths and what we can do. And so I think being passionate is like a contagious. And if you are passionate, even though you're not capable enough yet, people see you and then they try to give you the opportunity. I think I got this good opportunities a lot, not because I'm really capable enough or better than anybody else. It's because they think that, oh, this guy is like a really burning, like a really passionate. And then because of the potential only, not because currently I'm good, I have got many good opportunities in job offers also from UN agencies and private sectors. And compassion. I used to work in a UN project with the World Food Program. One of them was a medical outreach service. You can see these children Rwanda in East Africa, 1 year and a half. I just want you to remember that you are not just being successful. If you want to work for like international organizations, I know that many people I met, they are just interested in the reputation, and then they just want to say that, oh, I'm proud to work in an international organization, and that the brand is good, and they just happy to be working in the international organization itself. But they just seems like they forget why they're there. Compassion. I mean, I'm trying to ask you to think about the purpose of working for international organization. Why you want to work for international organizations? You are not just want to work for them because of salary or welfare benefits, and only because it sounds cool, right? Because unless you have this very strong sense of compassion and very strong sense of purpose, you will get lost later, even though you work for a good organization. Try to foresee. Don't just take the short-term view. Just think about what's going to happen next year. So if it doesn't benefit me right away, and you just try to understand everything, within 1 to 2 years, if it doesn't pan out, then you just give up. So, but I would like to suggest that don't take a short-term view. Whatever you do, you have to strongly believe that whatever you do later, you will get something. So if you don't have it, later you will feel lost. And then when the opportunity comes, you will also miss out that opportunity. So if you do something now, if it doesn't pan out next year, or let's say that for the next few years, it seems like what you're doing is useless. But if you really strongly believe in it, then later somehow it will all be connected. So don't give up and don't try to get the reward right away. Just try to take a long-term view, and then later it will pay off. So I just put this. This man is the gentleman is the Herman Cartasa, is a marketing guru. When I met him in 2006, I never knew who that is. And then later, until now, we are good friends. And it turned out that he's the co-author with Philip Kotler, as I said before. It's just one example. I know so many good people, but I didn't know who they are because I didn't judge people based upon their social status. But later, we just casually become friends, and then later it turned out that they are really high-profile people. That's how also they help me in many ways, and I also try to help them as much as I can. But all these connections didn't come overnight. But you treat people with respect, and whether their social status, regardless of their social status, you just be kind, nice, and then just be a good person, and with respect, and you will be recognized later. Of course, it's not the calculation; it's more about just don't make a hasty judgment about what you are doing and who you meet, because later it all turn out that they are really good people to you. But Steve Jobs just captured everything. So for the past 33 years, I have looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do today? And then whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something. But for me, this really resonates a lot because I all the time ask myself the same question whenever I feel lost. And all the time I ask myself, okay, this is what I want to do. If today is the last day on earth, then answer is actually very clear later. So anyway, what I said just now is kind of abstract. I know it's not really specific down to earth. But all these kind of abstract but kind of principles guide me so far. And that's how I've been able to work, landed good jobs before. And then I used to work in East Africa with a UN project, World Food Program. Now I'm working in Tokyo with a 21 member countries Asian Productive Organization, which is not as well known as UNICEF or UNDP. But I tell you that it's really wonderful organization.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Did you have like a plan for your life? I mean, for example, when you were in high school or when you were in undergraduate, did you schedule like a plan, like, okay, I will do this in this year, this in this year, or so on? And the other question is, for example, like, what do you do when you feel like you're just exhausted and like you don't want to do this anymore? And what happened when, like, if you plan, because I don't know, but if you plan, like what you want to do in your next 2-3 years, if something changed and you have to change the plans, like how you handle all this stuff?
Yeah, thank you very much for the good question. Actually, whenever I feel lost before, What I did is this. Many people are lost and then they stop doing what they are doing. I never stop doing what I'm doing, no matter how lost I feel and how exhausted I am. Sometimes I burned out also. But one thing that I all the time stick to is actually work out. The reason is because when you don't work out, you feel even more depressed. When you feel really exhausted, you don't want to do anything. But now, if I feel lost, it means that, okay, what I'm doing is not meaningful anymore. But I don't know where I have to go from here either. So what should I do? Should I just stop doing whatever I'm doing now? Or I just wait and then just prepare myself for the next journey, adventure? For me, whenever I have this opportunity, all the time, if you are sick, actually, I took this lesson when I was working in Tokyo, and then they cared about my field work experience, so they invite me. And it was really rare opportunity, but I was really lucky because I just sent one email and they saw it and then they thought that, oh, it's good. But then I felt sick when I was in Japan. It was because in Cambodia I worked too much and I didn't know that I was my immune system actually went down. So I worked only 1 month and then I had to come back to Korea. But then I realized that, even though I've been working out for a long time, my whole life, and there was a time that actually I didn't care about working out because I focused on only working. And then I realized that, I really have to resume my workout and then I really have to physically prepared because physically, if I'm not prepared, even though I have a good opportunity, I cannot take it. So as per your question, whenever I feel lost, I just continue to learn myself and then I just continue to work out because physical health is really important for later. You want to take a next step. If you're not physically fit and you don't have a stamina, then you can move on. You cannot move on. Even though you got a very good opportunity, you cannot take it either. So for me, it's more like, okay, no matter how lost you feel, you just continue what you do until you find another opportunity. But in the meantime, you educate yourself. Educate yourself means that I'm not talking about just going for degree after degree. There are over education, over qualification also is a problem. When we try to find some people in the recruitment, if somebody is overly educated, actually we think that this person must be just educating himself too much long time, and then maybe he might lack the practical knowledge or experiences, or even though it's not true, maybe, but it looks like it. So when I said educating yourself, it means that educating yourself by reading various topics, and then just to try to foresee the future as much as you can.
Oh, hi. I just came up with, I actually have some business ideas, right? But my problem is I feel I do not have the capital to start up the business. Even though sometimes I feel confident that I'll be able to start this business, but I feel I don't feel confident enough to bring it out and then make it a big business. How do you think I can really solve this? Even though I have the dream to do this, but sometimes I feel I'm too small or too young enough to do this.
I've been like a public sector, and private sector actually on and off. So I know exactly what you mean. I also did my own business before, so I know what you're saying. I was taking course with Professor Dong-Jae Kim. At the time, we studied together like a good to great and then build to last. What I picked up while I'm studying with the Professor Dong-Jae Kim at the time is that it's not something fancy, I think life is not about the being fancy. Mostly the startup companies, when they start, actually, they start small. Of course, there is always the case that the grand opening, and then you are grandchild of the big tycoon, and then you start easily, relatively speaking, more easily than others. But starting small, I think, is really important because starting small means what? I still remember why I was studying in Yonsei University also. At the time, I started my own consulting, very small. But then just word of mouth, thanks to word of mouth, I got a lot of clients later. But when I start with only one client, company client. But later, it just one thing led to another, and suddenly just 10, 20, 30. Why? Because you satisfied one customer, and that customer will spread the words, and then he will invite his friends, friends, and then they will bring customers more and more. So for me, it was like, oh, I just learned from Professor Dongjae Kim at the time about the good to great. And then start small. Actually, there was I still remember that they said that start small, and then you learn, you'll try and error, and then later you will even grow bigger. I think that trial and error, and then the starting small, and then you have your own lessons and your experiences more, and you will pick up the speed later. In a way, it's kind of prepare yourself, but have confidence is not something that somebody can teach you, right? It's just you practice every day. When I say practice, means that doing business. Whatever you have an idea, you keep trying, and then later you will learn more, better and better. So that's why I put one of my principles, keywords is courage, right? Because if you're afraid, you cannot move on. But even though you're afraid, what we are afraid of exactly? I think people really afraid of making mistakes and failures because that's how we have been taught. But that's why I think the education should change, right? Because we have to make mistakes. We are not talking about mistakes like stupid mistakes, right? I mean, let's say that it's raining now, but if I don't carry umbrella, even though I knew it, then it's just, I think it's not something anybody can make a mistake, but still there are some foreseeable, avoidable mistakes that you can always avoid. I'm not talking about the kind of mistakes, right? I'm not talking about reckless mistakes. I'm talking about even though you do your job, you do your best, everything you do, sometimes it will lead to failure, and sometimes you will make mistakes. But what I think is, so if you are afraid of making mistakes, you can never take a next step. So my advice, and based upon my experience with startup companies in Korea, in Indonesia, in Thailand, I can tell you that for sure, that don't be afraid of taking risks. And I'm not talking about the reckless risks, it's more like a calculated risks. Having confidence is just something that you have to work on. But I think making mistakes is just a natural thing. You just try to cushion the blow by taking the calculated risks. Unless you start, you never know whether you're going to make it or not. You have to give it a try. Start small. Don't feel that you're starting small, so you feel like you're miserable. Some people feel that way. I met some guy who used to work for Samsung, and he quit the job because he had to. And then he started his own business. Later he said that, oh, I feel so lonely because before, whenever he went somewhere, oh, I work for Samsung Electronics and everybody treats him very nicely. But now he's the CEO of his own company. It's small. It's not even well known. It's only just 2-3 staff. And then he feels miserable. He thinks that, oh, I want to go back to Samsung because now I feel even more miserable. But then, of course, you cannot go back to Samsung because you cannot work for big companies like forever. Somewhere, sooner or later, you have to start your own business. Then I think I would say that's who you are, naked, and then without the background. And then you start from there. Just be honest with yourself, then you make even better later. But you have to start in somewhere, right? Even the small, big. Business model is also important, and all those basic things.
Yes, I actually had a question about your view on knowledge.
Sure.
Yeah, you made it sound like you just keep accumulating knowledge, even though if it doesn't seem at that time, it seems useful, but like later down the line, an opportunity will present itself. Is there any kind of a standard or a thought process that you go through when you say, okay, I'm going to start to learn something? Or like based on your experience, are there some knowledge or skills that have been more handy throughout your experience in the business field?
You have to first decide whether you're going as a specialist or a generalist. If you're going to be like a specialist, means that let's say that you want to be the researcher, economist, analyst, then accumulating knowledge on, and then you go for even PhD. I would recommend it, definitely. But let's say that you want to be more like, let's say, the generalist. We want to become like a big picture guy. And in that case, for me, I think technical background can be very useful in the near future because technocracy is definitely upcoming. But for me personally, because I can share my experience that I studied law, And then I wanted to become the prosecutor or judge. Later, I changed my mind because I had the opportunity to do some civil actions with people that I know. I was helping them like a paralegal. And I realized that it was really tedious and took a long time. And I realized that, oh, this is not what I would want in my life. Stop. And then that's why I decided to go study in international management. When you think about international development or when you think about working in Africa, it might not be relevant to law actually, but it has a lot actually. It helped me a lot. The knowledge that I acquired like when I was studying law, and I learned a lot about the labor law, international labor law also. So that knowledge helped me a lot to get through all those labor disputes, local labor disputes, resolve with many labor issues later. But at the time, I was really thankful that I studied law because I never knew that this kind of legal knowledge will be helpful when I work in the international development. And then coming back to your question, I think economics, just based upon my experience at the moment that for the past 20 years, I can see that economics actually can be very helpful. MBA is helpful when you are involved in like administration and management itself, because any organizations, international organizations or international NGOs, no matter how good course they have, still it comes down to management. So if you have an MBA or management knowledge, it can be very helpful, handy. And economics definitely, because economics is actually, the way I say it, economics is just relevant to everything. Public policy making, also we have to deal with the economic aspect a lot because it's about people surviving. And now COVID-19 is the same situation. Economists are really, I think, that high demand in international organizations. So I suggest that if you study economics, and then if you can have like some legal knowledge, and then management also, like the MBA, I think definitely can be helpful. But let's say that if you, as I said over and over again, if you decide to become like a specialist, one of the persons that I know that like a medical doctor, in his case, he studied the MBA, but still he's a medical doctor. So in his case, he speaks very good English, and he is planning to work for like, let's say WHO. But in his case, since he's a medical doctor already, so and then also good English, he's already qualified to apply for it, and I'm sure he can do a great job. But it depending on which area you are going to go. For example, let's say that you are specializing in agriculture. Agriculture is really relevant also, right? Because in Korea, if you say that I'm studying agriculture, not many people will say, oh my God, that's awesome or cool. They don't say that. Most of the developing countries, still their main industry is agriculture. So if you study like agriculture because you want to become a specialist, it can also be helpful. So depending on which area you're targeting and just acquiring the relevant knowledge, then it will help you on the way. Just one more thing, in the process, while you're working, you feel that, I wish I could study this and that. In that case, but you still have to work. Nowadays, why online courses are more and more popular, not it's only because of COVID-19, because it's easy for you to just Google up. People don't want to quit their job. If they go, let's say, for 1 year executive courses in the United States or Harvard Business School, I have to quit my job. But now online courses is already good enough. So why do I have to quit my job and go there in 1 year and then come back and then maybe have to find another job? People don't want to do it, and they think the online courses are really good enough and getting better and better. So whenever I feel that, this knowledge I need, then I just take the courses online. That's actually save a lot of time and a lot of costs.
When I was working with the UNHCR last year, I was told many times that my senior managers told that working in private sector will be very good experience. But then I was thinking that, okay, if I quit the UN post or TA or whatever, so and then going to private sector and going back to the UN or international organization would be difficult. I was just thinking. So
if you have an opportunity to work for UN agents, let's say as a 6 month as an intern, I know that some people think that UNV, UN volunteer, is a volunteer. So you think this is nothing. But let me tell you, if you work as an intern or volunteer, let's say UN volunteer, UN intern, even for 6 months, half a year, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, actually, no, it's not really good. But half a year is a good career. That can be like a good starting point later, springboard. So if you have to do internship or volunteer work for UN agency, no matter how insignificant it might look, go for at least 6 months. You just ask them to let you work even 6 months, even though you have to pay for yourself. Because after 6 months, it'll be considered important. Though the many people are looking for international organization jobs, but when they are well educated, all of them. But then why? Many of them actually don't get the job. It's not because of the qualification itself only, because if there's anybody who has like a 6 month, 1 year to a few years of even just a menial job, it's a very small job, but use UN agencies or relevant to the UN agency, they take it seriously because this person might have a good understanding. Maybe it's a minimum understanding, we can train them. But if it's somebody who's been only just working for private sector and who has no experience with any UN agency or international agency, you might think that, oh, I've been working with the Samsung for 20 years, and you might think that you have an upper hand. And not necessarily. So for your question, I think it's not a bad idea to get the experience with the UN agency for about 6 months to 1 year, if it's possible. But then if you want to work a little bit like a specialized sector, like a private sector, and you want to come back to the UN agency with that expertise, it's not impossible. Actually, many people do it also. But I would like to suggest that you can. I've been working like a private sector and public sector. Actually, I got job offers through LinkedIn. They said that, we look at your profile in LinkedIn. We would like to offer you a job. Having the different experiences and then public sector and private sector. But if you want to do it, then it means that you have to take risks, right? So that's why you have to prepare yourself a lot. I would want to suggest that don't try to look for like a fancy work only. I would suggest that try to look at what you really want. Let's say you really want to be like a rich, then I suggest that you go for startup or you start your own business. If you have more money, then your life can be, it's okay. I mean, that's what you want. Just working for a UN agency is not something that really fancy, or something like an international organization might sound really fancy, and then maybe that's not what you want. So you have to be clear about what you really want, and then you can make a decision. So in order to make it happen, then means that you have to explore as much as you can when you still have time. So try work for like a private sector for about 6 months, and then I also work for like a UN volunteer, UNV, for about 1 to 2 years. And then you compare, no, actually, I'm not the kind of guy for public sector. Then you go just for private sector. But if you work for private sector, but you still want to work for public sector later, then you prepare yourself in the way.
Hi, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Working in developing countries like Africa, like I have, maybe like most people, I have this view that's not very safe to work there. What is your view on working in Africa, especially for women?
Yeah, it depends on where you work, right? I mean, when you talk about Africa, we're talking about East Africa or South Africa or West Africa or North Africa. It all depends on where you work. Even you work in the Southeast Asian countries, depending on which area you live in, it can be very dangerous. So my point is, yes, it's true. Well, when you go to like developing countries, it's not only about poverty, right? It's more about whether the government has a good governance, and also whether they have a good security. When you have a war, when you have a civil war, when you have any chaos in society, any society, like in the United States now, COVID-19 pandemic, what happens all the time is that lack of the enough workforces for like the police or soldiers. Then if you don't have a good control, then anything can happen. I would say that even if you go to Africa, unless you let's say that you don't go out at night alone, of course not, right? Because any other country is the same. And then also, usually when you go to the Africa, then they kind of, let's say that you find the good places usually, because we have enough budget. Usually when they put people there, they don't put just people in really unsafe places. When you go to Africa, you're not going to work in like a shanty area. You're going to stay like the safest and then where's this area. Usually that's what happens because they have to make sure your security. They get like a careless because they feel that, oh, it's safer than I thought. And then they become bolder, and then they do something that they are not supposed to, like going out at night, drinking the bars here and there over the weekends, and then without thinking about their safety. But other than that, if you really focus on work and then just stay in your place, actually it's really highly unlikely that kind of thing happens. But of course, anywhere, as you know, whether it's advanced or developing, if the area is not good, that can happen. But coming back to your question, and the simple answer is, depending on which area you go, but mostly I want you to know that many females also working in Africa, and then they are doing just fine. So don't worry about it. And if you go there, they have chance that the agents that they hire you also provide private security also. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. They think that sending a woman actually can be dangerous, then they will try to recruit the men more. For example, sometimes when you work for international organization, maybe a starting point might be communication officer job. But while you are doing it, you will have experience not only about communication, it's more about the experience with the international organization. Then if let's say that you get a job in an international organization, but still it's a communication. But then within organization, while you're working, they realize that you actually can do better in another division. And not necessarily because you're not good enough in communication, it's because you can do better on another division. Let's say your background like a finance, or let's say or technology, and then it happens to be like there's industry division, and then you can change your position later. So as you said, it's a good strategy to get experience with the international organization, no matter what, whether it's a communication, even if you're not interested in, let's say, the PR or certain areas that you're not interested, but at least you have an experience with the international organization. Then once they recruit you and you work with them, let's say for 1 year, 2 years, and they realize that your specialty is actually somewhere else, then they can easily transition you from that division to another division. You're not going to be stuck in the communication forever, but more like, as I said, try to look at the bigger picture. So if you have this experience with the international organization, not necessarily only the communication, then you will have a better chance later. No matter what you do, whether it's a private sector or public sector, just make sure that you are in a good health, and then keep learning. Learning doesn't necessarily mean that acquire the degrees, because sometimes you have no enough time. You cannot go for just another degree to another degree. Let's say that I'm advisor for, let's say, one cybersecurity company also. But as I can see, my background is not cybersecurity or technology. But then how did I get the advisor job for cybersecurity companies? Because I studied also working and studying together. And then I become more and more an expert on that area also. So I want you to just keep up learning, and then whatever you think is necessary, and not necessarily taking the degree courses, you can just go for like executive courses or online courses, certificate courses. You just do it, learn it very well, then you can get a lot more than you think. While you are equipping yourself with a relevant knowledge, and you also continue to work, and then you will have experience, like hands-on experiences. All those are combined together, and it will work for the best for you. So keep learning, and then good health, and then never stop reading, and then never stop exploring the new technology and new knowledge that you find useful in the future, not only right away. Take a long-term view and prepare yourself well. Then whenever you have a good opportunity, and you will be able to take it. And don't forget the human relationship, because at the end of the day, it all depends on who you know and how much you know each other, and then what kind of relationship you have. If you know somebody, things are actually getting easier. I'm not saying to take good care of a network like they are your business assets. I'm not saying that. Just take good care of the human factors and human relationships. It will all pay off later, and you will have not only just good business partners, but also good friends, and then they will help you a lot later. So all those things actually are all interconnected, and then it will work for the best.